Elizabeth Taylor was born on February 27, 1932, in London, England, to American parents who had relocated for business. Her family returned to the United States before World War II, settling in Los Angeles, where Taylor entered the entertainment industry as a child. She gained early recognition for her role in National Velvet, 1944, and her career progressed steadily throughout her teenage years. Taylor became noted for her striking appearance, emotional expressiveness, and ability to perform roles with depth beyond her age. As she transitioned into adulthood, she became one of the most recognizable film actors of the 1950s and 1960s, working continuously in major productions and maintaining a significant presence in the entertainment world. Taylor's personal life was highly public. She married 8 times to 7 men, and each marriage received extensive media attention. Her relationships shaped public perception of her life, sometimes overshadowing her professional accomplishments. However, within her private life, Taylor also maintained close relationships with her children. She had 4 children, 2 sons, Michael and Christopher, with her second husband Michael Wilding, 1 daughter, Lisa Todd, with her third husband, producer Mike Todd, and 1 adopted daughter, Maria Burton, adopted during her marriage to her 5th and 6th husband, actor Richard Burton. Lisa Todd was born on August 6, 1957. Her father, Mike Todd, was a successful film producer known for Around the World in 80 Days, 1956. His sudden death in a plane crash in 1958 occurred when Lisa was an infant. This loss resulted in significant changes in the structure of the household. Elizabeth Taylor was left to raise her young children while navigating the public pressure of her career and ongoing media attention. The household Lisa grew up in shifted through periods of relocation due to her mother's acting schedule and remarriages. Despite the scale of Taylor's fame, efforts were made to maintain a private environment for the children away from cameras and press interactions. Maria Burton was adopted in 1964 during Elizabeth Taylor's marriage to Richard Burton. Maria's early life was shaped by international travel, film sets, and shifting home bases connected to her parents' work. Richard Burton's and Elizabeth Taylor's relationship was intensely documented by international media, and the level of public visibility surrounding their lives required consistent privacy measures for their children. The Burton-Taylor household was frequently surrounded by press, which led to structured security practices to ensure the children maintained as normal a routine as possible within a highly public environment. During these years, Elizabeth Taylor balanced multiple responsibilities: acting schedules, travel, media scrutiny, and family life. According to consistent accounts from those close to her and from later statements made by her children, Taylor attempted to create environments of normalcy inside her home. She hired tutors when travel disrupted schooling, kept consistent household staff to maintain stability, and limited her children's media exposure. The household environment reportedly emphasized emotional closeness and direct communication rather than constant luxury or high-profile socialization. Taylor's work schedule was intense, and periods of physical and emotional stress were frequent. The demands of her acting roles, combined with health challenges including back injuries and pneumonia, required medical treatments that at times affected her energy and presence at home. Nonetheless, family accounts describe her as protective, affectionate, and attentive when she was home. The children moved with her during filming periods but were shielded from on-set activity and publicity whenever possible. As the children entered adolescence, the structure of the family continued to evolve due to further changes in Taylor's relationships. Taylor and Richard Burton divorced in 1974, remarried in 1975, and divorced again in 1976. During these transitions, the children experienced shifts in home environments but maintained contact with both parental figures. Family arrangements were handled through agreements that prioritized custody stability rather than media engagement. Taylor's focus during this period included stabilizing her household while continuing her acting work. Lisa Todd began developing an interest in the visual arts during her youth. She later pursued formal training in sculpture, choosing a professional life outside of public visibility. She has maintained privacy and rarely discusses her family history publicly. Her adult life has been characterized by self-directed work rather than media involvement. Maria Burton also chose a private life, with limited public information regarding her personal or professional activities. Both daughters intentionally distanced themselves from the entertainment industry and avoided public use of their mother's fame. By the 1980s, Elizabeth Taylor's public identity shifted from film star to humanitarian figure, particularly through her advocacy for AIDS research and support. Her daughters observed this shift firsthand. Family accounts indicate that Taylor viewed this work as essential, and the household environment reflected the seriousness of her involvement. Her activism required travel, fundraising work, and meetings, but her children remained connected to her during this phase of her life. The daughters' perspectives on their mother reflect long periods of observing her navigate medical challenges, media pressure, and major life transitions. Their public statements over time highlight not sensational revelations but clarification of what Taylor valued privately: emotional connection, loyalty, and personal responsibility within the family. These details contrast with the simplified, tabloid-based image that circulated during her lifetime. As Elizabeth Taylor's public life intensified in the 1980s, her daughters witnessed a shift in how she used her fame. Taylor became one of the most visible advocates for AIDS research and patient support at a time when the disease carried severe stigma. Her involvement began after the death of her close friend Rock Hudson in 1985. Taylor recognized that many public figures and institutions were distancing themselves from the subject, and she used her influence to draw attention to the issue. She co-founded the American Foundation for AIDS Research, AMFAR, and later established the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. Her children observed her travel to hospitals, meet privately with patients, and participate in fundraising events. Family accounts consistently describe this period as one in which Taylor devoted considerable personal energy to advocacy, often working independently of media expectations. The daughters' descriptions emphasize the practical, continuous nature of her involvement, not a symbolic gesture. During this period, Taylor also faced ongoing health challenges. She underwent multiple surgeries and treatments, including procedures related to chronic pain and respiratory issues. Her medical needs required periods of rest, therapy, and hospital recovery. Family records indicate that despite these interruptions, she attempted to maintain active presence in her children's lives and continued to include them in decisions about home stability. The household during these years was structured carefully to protect privacy, especially as media interest increased due to Taylor's activism and continued public recognition. As the daughters reached adulthood, they established separate personal and professional paths outside of the entertainment industry. Lisa Todd studied sculpture and built a career in the visual arts, working privately and avoiding interviews regarding her family. She maintained studios in the United States and Europe, focusing on commissioned work in gallery pieces. Her professional identity was developed independently rather than through her mother's fame. This approach aligned with her long-standing preference for privacy. Maria Burton also maintained a private life. She did not pursue a career in acting or public entertainment. Over time, she kept distant from media discussions regarding her family. Her public presence remained limited to occasional mentions in biographical material relating to Elizabeth Taylor, without direct engagement. This separation contributed to the difficulty the public had in forming accurate perceptions of the family dynamic, as neither daughter sought to publicly interpret or respond to portrayals of their mother. During the later years of Taylor's life, family accounts describe a home environment centered on stability and controlled access. Taylor reduced her acting work and focused on charitable involvement, personal relationships, and structured private routines. Her children and grandchildren visited regularly, and the household maintained separation from public view. Taylor experienced further health complications, including heart and joint conditions, which led to extended periods of limited mobility. Her daughters participated in supporting her health and personal needs, while also maintaining the privacy Taylor consistently valued. After Elizabeth Taylor passed away on March 23, 2011, public attention focused on her career legacy, philanthropy, and extensive cultural impact. Media commentary revisited her life events, relationships, and public identity. However, information about her personal life and household during her final years remained limited, reflecting the family's continued preference for privacy. Official family statements emphasize her humanitarian contributions and her role as a parent and grandmother. They did not engage in commentary about past marriages or controversies. The phrase "finally tells the truth" as applied to her daughters refers to rare, selective occasions where one of them provides clarification on the difference between public myth and private reality. When speaking publicly, Taylor's daughters consistently highlight that her life as a parent was defined by affection, strong protection of family space, and direct emotional connection. They clarify that her public persona as a glamorous figure did not define her conduct at home. They describe her as attentive, structured, and family-focused, particularly during periods when her health required her to slow down professionally. These clarifications address common misconceptions: that Taylor's life was constantly chaotic, that her marriages prevented stable parenting, or that her fame removed her from her children. Family statements instead indicate that much of Taylor's private life was centered on routine, conversation, shared meals, and personal involvement in her children's lives, even when travel or medical treatment created logistical challenges. Her daughters describe her as present and emotionally available during the majority of their development. They also clarify that wealth and public attention did not define their daily family structure. While the family had significant financial resources, the daughters emphasized privacy, emotional closeness, and limited dependence on Hollywood culture. These details contrast with the image of constant luxury and public spectacle often emphasized in media accounts of Taylor's life. As adults, the daughters have maintained the majority of their personal lives outside public discussion. When they address questions about their mother, their statements focus on clarifying patterns of stability, care, and values rather than revealing new personal details or private conflicts. Their perspective provides a more grounded view of Taylor's life than the narrative portrayed in tabloids or entertainment media. As public interest in Elizabeth Taylor's life continued after her passing, journalists and biographers revisited long-standing narratives about her relationships, health, career, and family. Many of these accounts relied on media records from the height of Taylor's fame, which often emphasized dramatic elements such as her marriages, jewelry collections, and public appearances. However, her daughter's later statements and occasional interviews have consistently focused on clarifying the everyday structure and emotional environment of their family life, offering a different perspective than the one commonly portrayed in entertainment media. In these accounts, Taylor is described as maintaining reliability and emotional presence within her household, even during physically demanding periods in her career. The daughters recount that despite travel, filming schedules, and public obligations, Taylor created routines that made home life predictable. Meals were shared when possible, birthdays and holidays were consistently acknowledged, and communication within the household was direct. The presence of staff in the home did not replace her involvement, as she was described as making deliberate decisions in family matters and spending time personally engaged with her children. These statements contrast with speculative portrayals that suggested distance or instability. Another recurring theme in the daughters' accounts is Taylor's commitment to maintaining control over her personal relationships. Despite intense external scrutiny, she managed her household boundaries carefully. Friends, colleagues, and associates were vetted, and social environments were structured to limit intrusion. The daughters' descriptions emphasize that privacy was not only preferred but necessary due to the level of public interest in their mother. These boundaries shaped their upbringing and influenced their decision to keep their adult lives out of public view. Regarding Taylor's marriages, the daughters have spoken about the distinction between the public drama often associated with these relationships and the reality of their home life. They clarify that while her relationships did involve emotional intensity and change, the household was not defined by conflict. Instead, transitions between marriages were handled through conversations, planned movement, and an emphasis on continuity of family stability. The daughters note that although Taylor's relationships were highly visible, much of the emotional processing and decision-making occurred privately, separate from media interpretation. In discussing Taylor's activism, the daughters highlight the personal motivation behind her work rather than its public reception. They note that Taylor viewed AIDS activism as a responsibility rather than a symbolic role. She used her influence intentionally, not for appearances but to address a gap in public compassion and medical response. Her daughters describe this advocacy as one of the most consistent long-term commitments of her life. The foundation she established continues to operate, and family members contribute in structured, quiet roles rather than high-profile public leadership. This approach reflects their preference to support her legacy in a way that maintains dignity rather than publicity. The daughters' accounts also address misconceptions related to wealth and material possessions. Public narratives often focus on Taylor's jewelry collection and other luxury items as representations of her identity. However, the daughters describe these objects as personal mementos associated with specific life events rather than symbols of status. They clarify that Taylor did not construct a family environment around wealth. Instead, daily routines were centered on shared activities and emotional support. The symbolic association of jewelry with relationships or achievements did not translate into material-centered family interactions. Over time, these items were handled as part of controlled estate planning, emphasizing continuity and preservation rather than spectacle. After Taylor's passing, her estate planning and charitable legacy were implemented according to documented instructions. The daughters did not publicly dispute the estate decisions. Instead, they maintained consistent stance of privacy and stability. Their limited public statements focus on honoring their mother's humanitarian work and preserving her personal dignity in public memory. They avoided engaging in commentary that would generate publicity around private family matters. The phrase "Elizabeth Taylor's daughter finally tells the truth" refers to the gradual clarification that occurs when first-hand accounts are compared to previously circulated public narratives. The daughters have not revealed new dramatic personal information or previously unknown events. Instead, their contributions correct misconceptions by emphasizing the difference between public myth and lived experience. Their statement highlight that Taylor was not defined solely by her marriages, possessions, or celebrity image. They describe her as a parent who prioritized emotional closeness, protection of family structure, and commitment to humanitarian work. Over time, these first-hand accounts have contributed to a more balanced understanding of Elizabeth Taylor's life. The public record now includes not only performance achievements and relationships, but also evidence of sustained activism, consistent care for family, and controlled management of personal boundaries. The daughters' testimonies form an essential part of this broader understanding because they reflect the environment within the household rather than external media interpretation. In reviewing the full narrative of Elizabeth Taylor's life, the conclusion supported by family accounts is clear. The widely repeated public story of constant glamour and disorder does not represent the structure of her private world. Her daughters describe a life centered on connection, responsibility, and deliberate choices. Their perspectives are measured, consistent, and grounded in lived experience rather than reaction to public commentary.